minutes to approve or reports to share. We have new business, and that is an amendment to the PTO bylaws. That's the sole purpose that we call this meeting. So just as a tiny bit of context in, there we go. In Article 8, the bylaws state that to be amended, we need a 2/3 vote, but it has to be presented at a meeting prior to the one where the voting occurs. So that is the purpose of this meeting, to explain or to present the proposed language. We won't vote today, but just to get that out there. So Spencer Cahoon, our treasurer, has been the proponent of this idea. So I'm going to let you go ahead and talk about the why.
Sure. So the idea and the reasoning, the idea was to allow people to vote on certain PTO matters that are particularly significant or of very impactful nature, who might not be able to make it to the meeting. Maybe they have childcare obligations, maybe they have work obligations, or just other family commitments that preclude them from being there. And this would allow us to choose to take a vote electronically, so we could include a broader scope of people and allow some additional time for a vote to be taken, rather than just by the members who are able to be present. And the whole idea there is to try to be inclusive of our various members' schedules, their outside commitments, their childcare needs, and empower involvement by anyone who's a part of the PTO who would like to be involved in the decision-making process. And this rule makes electronic voting discretionary, so it's not something we have to do for every vote, but it's something that we will be looking at for votes that are a particularly large portion of resources that we're contributing to a project, or just that are a significant change. And that's something the executive board would have control over on a vote-by-vote basis. So that's what we're looking at, and that's why. And we hope that it'll make us a more inclusive PTO with more people involved.
So then I'll ask Spencer a question. I know the answer, but for the benefit of everyone else. So Spencer, are we looking at certain platforms or ways, like a third party who would administer this for us?
So there are a number of electronic voting platforms that we've looked at in a preliminary way. And there is a small cost associated with those. So because there's a small cost, it's probably not something we would use for every vote, just like if we're bringing in a new executive member or we're adding some small additional expense to something, it wouldn't be worth paying for that extra service. But for things that are significant commitments, where we're spending a large amount of our resources or we're changing the nature of how we do something in a significant way, a small cost may be worth it to try to make sure that everyone is included as much as we can have them.
Okay.
And we will have a more detailed rundown of that at the next meeting.
Ms. Clayton, is it possible, I know we threw this at you, to share that PDF? Okay, that's great. So looking at the document that's in front of you, this is in Article 3, Basic Policies and Membership Meetings. And what is in the regular font is our existing language, and what is in the bold is proposed additions. So if you look at, and also we broaden it to have subsections. So E1 has that, we're retaining some of the language, which is we need a majority vote of members to pass something that we're trying to do, an ordinary measure. And we're adding in, except where electronic voting has been authorized. And then this talks about there's two situations where you need more than majority, and that's going to be a bylaws amendment or removal of executive board members. The second subsection is saying that the majority vote of the executive board is how we're going to get to electronic voting. So Spencer didn't mention exact cost, and don't quote me, but like something, it could be around in the range of 100 or around that. So we'll decide, we'll have a vote, a majority vote of the executive board to decide where it would be appropriate. And then the last subsection is just clarifying that this allows all PTO members to vote, including people who were not present at the time where the electronic voting measure was proposed, and that the method and the time frame will be determined by the executive board. So that is what does anyone have any questions or comments on this? Okay. Spencer, is there anything else to add?
I don't think there's anything else to add right now. For those of you who have been able to join us or who are watching this after the fact, If you have any thoughts about this or concerns, you can reach out to us proactively about that, or you can bring your thoughts to the meeting where we're taking a final vote on this bylaw amendment. And we're happy to consider them there.
I do have one question. Do you hear piano in the background? I'm sorry if you do.
Yes.
I like the idea in principle. Any ways of guarding against any kind of fraud or someone signing up for another email account and putting another vote in?
So we've looked at that as well, and a number of the services that exist online cater to that very specifically. You would send out essentially a vote to a particular email address. So we would be taking the list of email addresses for everyone who's a PTO member. That email address would have one vote that can be cast a single time from that address. So that would mean someone couldn't sign up for a new address or come in from somewhere else and pretend to be a parent and then vote in an election where they're not actually involved.
Perfect.
All security measurements that we're looking at.
Great, thank you.
Great question.
Any other questions? Like Spencer said, this is just introducing it, and we'll have this out over the weekend, and then we'll discuss it more fully on Tuesday. So just the only announcements that I would have is that right now we have a community poll that's out, and it's supposed to close tomorrow, Saturday, the 20th. So we would love to hear from you. The link is in the newsletter, and I think it's been shared on Facebook. So that would be something. And then the next announcement is Tuesday, the 23rd at 7 o'clock. We have our PTO meeting. We are going to address a number of things. Definitely come. I won't say it's going to be fun, but I think it's going to be really great. And we will share the agenda the day before on Monday, the 22nd.
Mrs. Lang, we don't expect fun. That's okay.
Thank you. If there are no objections, I would now adjourn the meeting. Is there anything else that anyone has? Okay,
Objections? Second the motion to adjourn.
the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. I'm practicing over there
Yeah,
in the
we're
Lang
going.
household.
We did good.